And you don't have to go out and kill nobody to do it.
We each, as individuals, have a responsibility to make it better so that don't never happen again. What happened in 1992.
A single mom on the rebound finds happiness in the arms of a new man.
They were engaged and even starting to plan their wedding.
She already knew the colors. She couldn't stop talking about it.
But their wedding bells will never ring.
There's blood everywhere.
Her fiance is the one who found her.
As the investigation begins, the bonds of love will be tested.
His timeline didn't necessarily add up.
After they broke up, they still saw each other.
There's a possibility for a love triangle going on.
Did he know she was cheating?
They both have a motive, and now they're pointing the finger at each other.
It opened all kind of doors and all kind of new questions.
You think you're going to commit the perfect crime, and there's no such thing.
November 18th, 2015. It's a typical Wednesday morning in Portage, Indiana, a suburban community at the southern tip of Lake Michigan.
Portage is about 45 minutes outside of Chicago. It's a quiet, safe community. It's the kind of place that people go to start families and get away from the big city.
But on this morning, one Portage family is about to learn that tragedy can strike anywhere, even in the safest of places.
911 was the emergency.
Funny in the ambulance right now, please, please, please.
The caller is 20-year-old Martell Robinson.
He was so upset, crying hysterically.
He was just screaming, come help me. There's something wrong with my fiance.
Just lay on the ground, please.
Do you know what happened?
No, I don't.
He said he had just gotten home from working a late shift.
I just see blood just everywhere. Please, just send somebody, please.
Sheriff's Department!
Within minutes, officers arrive on the scene.
The door was open. They come in at gunpoint and discover this guy in there.
Hands, show me your hands.
No, I was the one that called.
Okay, move to the corner of the room. He clearly has blood on his clothing and his hands, so they didn't know what to take of it.
Sometimes the person who's making the 911 call is, in fact, the perpetrator.
Police quickly turn their attention to Martell's fiancée, 30-year-old Tiara Thomas.
She is laying on the floor. There's blood everywhere.
The young woman had been shot several times.
You can see that she has a head injury.
They didn't know what to think. Had they just walked in on a domestic dispute, or was there a killer on the loose?
Gary, Indiana native Tiara Thomas was always the life of the party.
She was a fun-loving person, very spontaneous, and someone that everybody got along with.
She loved to make people laugh, and when they were around her, they just felt warm and welcome and at home.
Though no one felt more at home around Tiara than Kevin Campbell.
Tiara and Kevin have a long history.
Together since high school, Kevin and Tiara had taken on every challenge thrown at them and formed a bond well beyond their years.
It was such a close relationship together. Tiara's family took him in like he was one of their own.
It wasn't long before Tiara and Kevin announced they were adding a new member to the family, too.
After Kevin and Tiara graduated, she got pregnant.
Tiara and Kevin went from high school sweethearts to building a family almost immediately.
Though the two never tied the knot, over the next several years, they had 2 more children and continued building a life together.
Kevin became a police officer with Gary Police Department in Indiana.
Tiara got a job at the Department of Social Services and started taking evening classes at the local college.
Well, I see you tonight.
Well, if you can pull me away from my homework, you can.
I'll see what I can do.
She had dreams of being an accountant, one day opening her own daycare.
All right.
As their family grew, Kevin and Tiara bought a house just outside Gary, and Kevin transferred departments to be closer to home.
They were both growing in their careers.
But with busy jobs and raising 3 kids, they had less time for each other, and the romance began to fade.
They had been together 14 years. They have 3 children together. So there was a lot vested in that relationship, but things started to gradually fall apart.
Eventually, Tiara and the kids moved out, and Kevin moved on.
Kevin started dating a young girl named Brooke, who was a waitress at a diner where a lot of local Hammond cops like to hang out.
Kevin's new relationship was a bit of a shock to Tiara.
When she found out that Kevin had a younger woman, that kind of made Tiara feel a little insecure.
It definitely didn't help that Kevin and Brooke got married and had a baby together.
Tiara was heartbroken.
They had been together for 14 years and he never popped the question. Suddenly he made this new woman his wife. It was a big blow to Tiara.
But Tiara wouldn't stay down for long.
You got a minute?
Yeah, of course. Come in.
Tiara meets this young gentleman, Martel, who she works with.
Despite the colleagues' age difference, the two instantly hit it off.
Tiara was significantly older than Martel.
The age difference didn't even faze them. They just more so fell in love with each other.
They had a lot in common. Their conversations were great.
By the beginning of 2015, Martel moved into Tiara's apartment.
He'd also taken a night job at a nearby factory to start earning some more money.
Martel was all in. He loved Tiara and her children. He was in it for the long haul.
And unlike Kevin, Martel was willing to make it official.
He proposed to her and they were set to be married.
1 second before I forget. I've been planning and looking, and look at this cake right here. What do you think about that?
Look, I told you, if you love it, I love it.
That's why I love you.
Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. She was super excited to get married. She's ready to go.
Her and Kevin had been separated for about a year. Something felt different with Martel. It's like she had waited for him her whole life.
The future for Tiara was really bright.
But now, on the morning of November 18th, 2015, her future hangs in the balance.
Hands, show me your hands.
No, I was the one that called.
Martel had just called 911 to report that he had found Tiara laying on the floor, covered in blood.
Patrol officers respond, find her in the bedroom.
There's pooling of blood under the victim, so they obviously know they have a very serious crime scene here.
It was gruesome.
There's a shoulder wound that wasn't fatal. There's also the shot that went through both arms to the head.
But there may be a faint glimmer of hope.
She's still alive.
By mid-November of 2015, 30-year-old Tiara Thomas was looking to the future with her new fiancé, Martel Robinson.
They were in love and ecstatic to build a life together.
But on the morning of November 18th, 2015, Till Death Do Us Part becomes all too real.
After receiving a call from Martel, police arrived to find her lying on their bedroom floor, covered in blood, her body riddled with bullets.
At first, they thought she was dead, but they were able to detect a faint pulse.
She was clinging to life. So they're trying to do everything that they can.
She's transported out of there to the hospital.
While EMTs work to save Tiara, officers transport Martel to the station for a formal statement.
Despite him telling them that we came in and discovered her like that, they obviously can't verify that on his word.
Martell's the one who found her and called us. You have to look at him.
While Martell waits at the station, detectives arrive at the crime scene and begin their investigation.
They find these 9mm shell casings.
There was no weapon found, but detectives discovered a pillow with gunshot holes in it.
The belief is a pillow was used to try to silence the shots.
Other aspects of the scene allow detectives to reconstruct the shooter's likely motive.
There was no signs of forced entry. It didn't appear that anything was stolen.
They had no evidence that there was an attempted sexual assault.
It appears to have been a cold-blooded, violent attack.
This was someone close to her, someone who either had a key or for whom she would have opened the door or who would have known when the door would have been unlocked.
A fact that immediately points to one man.
It would make sense for Martell to be a prime suspect.
He's found at the crime scene. He obviously has access and a key to the residence. Certainly the opportunity for him to be the perpetrator is there.
Martell could have shot Tierra, ditched the gun, and then called 911 as the distraught fiancé.
But when detectives join him in the interrogation room, Tierra's fiancé still appears beside himself with grief.
Please, please. Oh my God. Oh my God.
You okay?
No, sir, no.
Based on his reaction in the interrogation room, he's beyond heartbroken.
Or Martell's a good actor.
Well, I'm not sure what happened. So we're gonna try. Okay.
According to Martell, he and Tierra had been alone together earlier that evening.
The kids had spent the night with their father, Tierra's ex, Kevin Campbell.
Well, they begged him to pick him up yesterday. So me and her, we were together up until 10 o'clock last night at work. He stated that he works a shift and gets off at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Martell also says just before his shift ended, he tried to call Tierra to make sure she was up in time for work.
I figured, hey, the kid's not home. She probably on sleep. So as soon as I'm getting off work, I'm calling her phone.
She didn't answer, which was odd to him because he knew that she should be getting up, getting... knew that she should be getting up, getting, ready for work.
According to Martell, he noticed something else odd when he got home.
Tierra,
My apartment was on lock. Of course, I was going to go in there and say something to it because that's not safe.
Tiara.
I walked in there. She was just on the floor, just bleeding everywhere.
He became very hysterical. He immediately called 911.
That's terrible. Come home, dude. And I want to be here to talk to you and offer you any type of help that I can get you there. But I also want to help her by finding out exactly what went down. We asked Martell, what does he think? Because, who would have done this?
Martell can think of only one person.
I don't want to say baby daddy, but the kid's father and her don't get along. He's saying the only person that might have a beef with her is her ex, the father of her 3 children, Kevin Campbell. He got a gun. He's a cop. And that's the only thing that adds up to me. And nobody else would try to harm her at all.
Martell's quick accusation raises red flags for detectives.
He immediately pointed the finger at this guy, and police were thinking, is this an honest suspicion, or is this an attempt to throw the investigation off track?
Of course, those are things that, we're going to look at every way we can.
And in order to do that, detectives will need Martell's full cooperation.
We asked to do some tests, which he cooperated with. We wanted to examine his phone, which he immediately gave us.
He was asked for his clothing articles as well. He immediately volunteered to surrender them for forensics.
At the end of the interview, detectives deal Martell a final blow.
He's got some really bad news, man.
Please, don't. Yeah. Please, I don't want to know.
Tiara had passed away.
Our fire department's really good about, getting them to the hospital as quickly as possible. But she ultimately succumbed to her injuries.
No, please, no.
He just broke down and cried.
No.
Martell was devastated. He was inconsolable, crying, wailing, and this could be heard throughout the police station.
According to a recent study, 22% of victims who suffer gunshot wounds die as a result of their injuries. However, gunshot wounds that result in brain injuries are among the most lethal, with a reported fatality rate between 85 and 90%. Just hours after 30-year-old Tiara Thomas was shot in her Portage, Indiana apartment, detectives suddenly have a homicide investigation on their hands. While his reaction appears genuine, detectives can't help but wonder if they're watching a heartbroken fiancé or a killer trying desperately to cover his tracks.
Is this for the camera, so to speak? Is it, for our interview? Is it truly grief? Sometimes it's hard to say.
Especially considering Martell's insistence that Tiara's ex, Kevin Campbell, is responsible for her death.
Detectives can't help but notice that, even though he's genuinely distraught, he seems to be very adamant in pointing the finger at Kevin.
Still, detectives follow his lead. Less than an hour after interviewing Martell, Kevin is called down to the station.
Kevin was also very emotional. He was in a complete state of shock. He was trying to figure out who could have done this to Tiara as well.
For the first several minutes of the interview, when we especially started talking about Tiara, he was crying.
How long were you guys together? A lot happened today.
He's crying profusely, so much so that the police officer decided to kind of give him a minute.
He's a fellow brother police officer, so they give him certain consideration.
Once Kevin regains his composure, he's able to answer the detective's questions.
Were you married at some point? Yes. Okay. But you were raising 3 beautiful children, right?
Yeah. They've been separated, but according to him, it's pretty amicable.
He talked about, she was great as far as allowing to see the children.
including the night before Tiara's murder.
He had picked the kids up 5:30-ish the prior night, brought them home, and said he was home all night until morning when he got them up.
What time did you have to get them all up? A little after 5:45, I believe.
Kevin says he left at about 6:45 to take them to school in Portage.
Kevin said he hadn't seen Tiara since he picked them up, although they had been texting each other that night.
Kevin told the investigators that he was texting Tiara about homework for the kids.
You guys kind of went back and forth about school stuff?
And then the next morning, he texted her again.
He said that he didn't hear from Tiara that morning.
You think anything one way or the other unusual or not unusual that she didn't respond?
I guess he must feel this way.
Okay.
It seems he wasn't worried enough to go check on her. But even if he had, Kevin tells detectives that he didn't have a key to her apartment.
My oldest has a key, but he doesn't bring it with him.
Next, detectives asked Kevin the same question they asked Martell Robinson. Who would want to hurt Tiara?
My first thought would be Martell.
Much like Martell, Kevin seemed intent on implicating the other man in Tiara's life.
Detectives had two men, both emotional, both having feelings for the victim, pointing the finger at each other.
But is there another possibility?
Was she jealous of the gal that's your wife now? I don't think so.
They weren't ruling anything out at this point. And detectives knew that there's a possibility for jealousy or envy to also be a part of the whole situation.
Brooke was the new wife, and although Kevin had been with Tiara for 14 years, he never married her.
Detectives wondered if, in Tiara's mind, Brooke had broken up her family. And perhaps in Brooke's mind, Tiara was always going to be a part of Kevin's life. And maybe she was tired of living in her shadow.
Detectives bring Brooke in for questioning that afternoon, where she's pretty candid about her relationship with Tiara.
I don't think she ever really got over the fact of Kevin marrying me.
Brooke goes on to say that she didn't have any animosity toward Tiara.
Lord knows I tried to be nice to her, but she just wasn't having it.
Brooke also told detectives that as far as she knew, Kevin had been home all night.
I was up about 2 or 3 times with the baby, and he slept right through it.
So she gives him an alibi to his whereabouts at the time of murder.
Brooke said she never left the house either. She had been taking care of their young child all night.
With Kevin and his new wife seemingly alibied out, detectives circle back to Martell.
The police speak to his supervisor to question him about Martell's whereabouts.
I spoke to his supervisor of the midnight shift, said he saw him all night.
He worked at late shift. He got off at 7 in the morning.
So with both alibis seemingly checking out, detectives are at a standstill.
Could there be something or someone detectives have overlooked?
Maybe. There's a third man in Tiara's life, somebody that her ex and her fiance had no idea about.
Hoping to gain more insight into Tiara's personal life, detectives spend the next day digging into her background.
As part of the investigation, they're going to reach out to the close friends and acquaintances of the victim.
Though it's not until detectives sit down with a friend of Tiara's named Stephanie Phillips that they truly learn anything useful.
Well, she laid it out. I mean, she was very clear. She said, listen, Martell and Tiara are good. Their relationship is good.
So she wasn't seeing anyone else?
I mean, nobody except Kevin.
Her ex-boyfriend?
Yes.
As it turned out, it wasn't a clear break.
Stephanie was able to tell that there was something going on between Tiara and Kevin.
They've still been hooking up, despite the fact that they're both with other people.
"24 hours after 30-year-old Tiara Thomas was gunned down, detectives received intel from Tiara's friend that could blow the case intel from Tiara's friend that could blow the case wide open.
Stephanie thinks that Tiara may have been going behind her fiance's back with her ex-boyfriend.
Well, her friend said after they essentially broke up, they still saw each other.
This was a very significant turn in the case because it opened up so many questions in the investigation.
Could Martel have found out that Tiara had been seeing Kevin?
Detectives wonder if his grief could have actually been remorse over something he had done in a jealous rage.
Or could her ex-boyfriend Kevin be the one to blame? Perhaps the pending nuptials of Tiara and Martel were more than he could bear.
The affair between Tiara and Kevin seemed to taper off the more serious that Martel and Tiara got about their relationship. And once they started setting a wedding date, Tiara became far and far more removed from Kevin.
Another possibility is Kevin's new wife, Brooke. Maybe she learned her husband was cheating on her with Tiara and sought revenge.
Brooke, Martel, Kevin, if what Stephanie is saying is true, any one of them could have had a motive.
And are you sure there's still something going on between them?
Well, he sure acts like it.
It seemed to the friend that Kevin had made sexual comments to Tiara, almost like you're still together.
And what kind of comments are we talking about? Did you ever see them get physical?
Not exactly.
Kevin would send her flirty text messages.
But Kevin's texts weren't just flirty.
Stephanie did share one thing that was somewhat disturbing. His son went to the orthodontist and it was going to be a fairly expensive bill. And Kevin said something to her like, well, if you're going to need that money, when can I get an appointment with you?
It seemed like Kevin wasn't going to give Tiara money for their son unless she agreed to hook up with him.
Tiara shared with her that Kevin was already under some sort of financial constraints.
So that was another red flag for us.
With Stephanie's allegations in mind, detectives begin digging into Kevin's finances.
They find out that he's been making these huge child support payments.
Initially, when they separated, there was no formal child support or really any other guidelines set down. They just kind of did it between them. Tiara then in 2015 went to court and final court order was an amount of $1,500 a month taken out of his checks.
To detectives, the court order seemed like a significant amount for someone in Kevin's situation.
Kevin had a lot going on. He had a new wife with a new small child, and he has financial responsibility extended to the new household as well as the old household.
Police officers don't make all that much. I don't think Kevin, given his other bills, could keep up with the child support payments.
Given Kevin's financial statements, it seemed child support wasn't the only thing Kevin had fallen behind on.
We found out on his credit report, there were accounts and collections, there were accounts closed, there were written off by companies, delinquencies of 120 days, a couple of credit cards. It was a mess.
His savings account had about $7.89 in it, and Kevin was basically broke.
Then, 5 days before Tiara's murder, Kevin had hit rock bottom.
Kevin had his vehicle repossessed while him and his wife were at the mall.
They came out from shopping and it's gone.
Which leaves detectives wondering if a desperate Kevin had been pushed to the breaking point.
Was this the motive for Kevin to have murdered Tiara?
If something were to happen to Tiara, obviously the child support to her is going to stop.
While the theory is starting to add up for investigators, there's just one problem: the timing.
Brooke did verify that Kevin was home. She was up a couple of times that night, tending to the newborn.
However, Brooke, Kevin, and the baby were the only ones in the home that night. Kevin and Tiara's kids were also sleeping over.
So now detectives want to question Kevin's oldest son, Camden.
Maybe he'd heard something or seen something that night.
On November 25th, 2015, 1 week after his mother's murder, detectives have the difficult job of interviewing the 12-year-old at his grandmother's house.
You have to handle, a kid that age with kind of kid gloves. It's asking them, pretty simple questions.
Despite the care detectives take in questioning Camden, he's unable to say whether or not his father left the house that night.
Camden was asleep and did not see anyone coming or going from the house.
It was starting to look like questioning Camden was a bust.
Until the questions turned the next morning when Kevin drove the kids to school.
Camden mentions that on the way to school, his dad pulled over at a park.
What's going on, Dad?
Just wait in the car. I'll be right back.
He couldn't really see what was in the bag, but Camden did say that his father stopped and threw a bag in the garbage can.
So now detectives are wondering what was in the bag that Kevin had gotten rid of, and could it be the key to solving Tierra's murder?
It's been 1 week since Tierra Thomas's murder, and her 12-year-old son Camden has just given detectives a break in the case.
Tierra's son says that on the way to school the morning after the murder, his father, Kevin Campbell, stopped at the park, tossed a bag into the garbage.
He told his son it was just a bag of trash that he was getting rid of, but could have been a murder weapon in there, could have been some of Tierra's items.
It could have been the clothes that Kevin was wearing the night of the murder.
We just didn't know. But this brought up a huge red flag to police.
That's not the only thing the 12-year-old says that raises suspicion.
Camden told officers that his father had inquired about Martell's schedule in the days leading up to the murder, and that's something he had never done before.
It sounded like Kevin was trying to figure out when Tierra would be alone inside the apartment.
And what Camden says next leaves detectives all but convinced that Kevin was plotting her murder.
I asked about the keys. Said, did your dad ever ask you to bring a key? He goes, yes.
The day before Tierra's murder, his father had asked him to make sure he brings the key. We do know from the initial crime scene there was no forced entry, and this may very well explain the opportunity for Kevin to have been able to get in there.
This is very damning information.
Now, all detectives need is concrete evidence.
Camden was able to take the officers to the park where they dropped that bag off.
Though when detectives search the garbage can, they come up empty-handed.
Everything's gone. Nothing's there.
Undeterred by this setback, detectives turn their sights to Kevin's home in nearby Hammond, Indiana.
I had a search warrant drawn up and signed by a judge.
They go to Kevin's house, they do a full search, but they're unable to find any hard physical evidence.
There's no murder weapon discovered. There's no article of clothing, as far as I could tell, that connects him to the crime.
However, detectives do uncover one potentially useful piece of information.
They find that he has a home security system.
That's great information because it allows the officers to then go further in their investigation to see what the security system provides.
It was one of those systems where the security company provides 24-hour monitoring of the premises.
We contacted them, and they provided us a history of the activity the system did each day.
Detectives quickly scroll to the early morning of November 18th, just hours before Tierra's fiancé, Martell Robinson, found her barely alive in their apartment.
Kevin maintains that he never left his house. Brooke maintains that Kevin was there. However, the security system says otherwise. Someone in Kevin's home left the house about 4:37 a.m.
After that, there was no activity until 5:55 a.m.
That's a whole hour's time that someone was out. And that's plenty of time to get from Hammond to Portage for Kevin to get to Tierra's house and get back.
However, detectives aren't quite ready to make an arrest. They want one last piece of information to cement their case against Kevin. His cell phone records.
In addition to the information the phone directly provides, we can ask for cell tower information, which we did in this case.
The records are telling.
At 5:38 a.m., Kevin's cell phone pinged on a tower in Portage, one of the closest towers to Tierra's home.
The tower puts Kevin within 1 mile of Tierra's apartment on the morning she was killed. It's the final piece of the puzzle.
The officers had enough evidence to charge Kevin with the murder of Tierra.
However, taking Tiara's killer into custody won't be a simple matter of knocking on his door and putting him in cuffs.
They had to arrest Kevin with caution. With him being a police officer, he had a lot of tactical gear and weapons.
He possessed body armor. So that ratchets up the chances for something bad to happen. So we made a decision that, hey, we're going to utilize the SWAT team to do this.
It's before dawn on December 3rd, 2 weeks after the murder, when the SWAT team moves into position around Kevin's house.
Talking with the detectives, Kevin had a little bit of a routine.
His wife worked at a 24-hour restaurant. She would start at 6 a.m. He would drive her to work. So the plan was to get him at home really right when he comes out, where he just doesn't expect this.
We were probably on site by around 5 a.m.
Hey, Jason, you got anything yet?
No, nothing yet.
It seemed like an eternity. It was getting to be past 6 o'clock. We have this arrest warrant. So now I'm trying to decide, do we just kick the door and go in and get him?
I don't see anything on the...
The door and go in and get him.
I don't see anything on the side of the house either. Wait, I've got a light on inside now.
Shortly after 6 o'clock, he starts to come outside, and we had the house surrounded.
Police! Let's your hand! Stay there! Don't move!
The SWAT team moved in. Who knows what went through his mind? He took off running.
Stay right there!
Prior to becoming the chief, I was on the SWAT team for 12 years, going after people involved in major acts of violence such as this. So once we developed Kevin as a suspect, knowing that he's an officer, had a lot of training, a lot of experience, we started talking about the way to arrest him. All eyes were going to be on us. And Portage is probably like a lot of typical Midwestern towns. Homicides don't happen all that often. But when they do, we've got really good people to, handle these kinds of investigations. And I don't think Kevin was banking on that.
On December 3rd, 2015, 2 weeks after the murder of Tiara Thomas, a SWAT team has just confronted her ex-boyfriend, 31-year-old Kevin Campbell, outside his home.
As he exits the house, they try to apprehend him, but he takes off running.
Stay right there! I got him! Go around! Oh, left leg, come on.
We had people in the front yard and tackled him and took him down. He was taken into custody without anyone getting hurt. and you couldn't ask for a better scenario.
January 9th, 2018. As the trial for Kevin Campbell gets underway, prosecutors face an uphill battle against the former officer.
They didn't have gunshot residue. They didn't have DNA, no footprints or tracks to even tie Kevin to the murder. I mean, it was going to be based solely on circumstantial evidence.
However, prosecutors believe they have a compelling argument based on the financial benefit Kevin stood to gain in the event of Tiara's death.
The child support was estimated at about $1,500 a month, and that was a substantial part of Kevin's monthly check.
Though the monthly payout was painful enough, prosecutors claim that Tiara's engagement to Martell Robinson was the final straw that pushed Kevin over the edge.
He was not just concerned about the money that was going out, but now she's got a new man in her life, and he thinks some of the money is going to be benefiting him.
According to the prosecution, Kevin had come up with a drastic solution.
The prosecutors argued that Kevin intentionally and deliberately took the children during a weekday, a time that he normally doesn't take the kids, so that he can have the kids out of the house, but also so that he could have access to the house key to get into the home.
Then, while his wife and children slept, he quietly slipped out of the house, though his movements didn't go undetected.
The home security system shows that on the night of the murder, somebody left out of that residence.
At 4:37 in the morning, Kevin left the house, drove to Tiara's home, where the cell phone tower showed he was in the area around that time.
Using the key he took from his son, prosecutors believe Kevin entered Tiara's apartment and crept quietly into the bedroom, gun in hand.
He put a pillow over her to silence the gun and pulled the trigger while she slept.
She would survive the first shots, and thought is she was even able to put up a bit of a struggle. Shot that went through both arms would be a type of defensive wound.
His final shot was to her head, and while she fell to the ground, he took off.
Prosecutors argued that Kevin left the scene of the crime with plenty of time to drive home, walk in the house before 6 o'clock, just in enough time to take the kids to school.
To solidify their case, prosecutors called Kevin's son to the stand.
The son stated that his dad asked him to bring his key with him.
He also told the jury about his father stopping at the park and throwing something out on his way to school that morning.
The significance of that is obviously the fact that Kevin may be possibly getting rid of some evidence of this crime.
This was just devastating, coming from Kevin's own son.
When it's the defense's turn, Kevin's attorney makes the most of the case's circumstantial nature.
The defense was painting this as there was no hard physical evidence, no DNA, nothing really tying Kevin to this murder.
To bolster his case, Kevin takes the stand to provide his own emotional testimony.
He was extremely emotional and hurt by the fact that he was accused, but also by the fact that there was another murderer out there and he was innocent of this crime.
He says he can never hurt the mother of his 3 children.
Kevin also testified that he was behind on bills, but he was not financially depressed to that extent.
Kevin methodically dismisses almost every piece of evidence the prosecution has presented, from triggering the door alarm to stopping at the park on the way to school.
Kevin said he did open the door at 4:30 in the morning, just as the security system recorded, but that he was taking one of the baby's dirty diapers out to the trash.
He argued that the bag in his car was snotty tissues that he collected from his children.
But will his explanations be enough to sway the jury?
He was found guilty. It was a quick verdict, hour and a half or so. That's fast.
Not that Kevin accepts the jury's decision.
In the sentencing hearing, Kevin continues to hold on to his innocence, claiming for the family and community that he would one day find the murderer of Tiara.
Kevin's plea holds little water for the judge.
Kevin was sentenced to 55 years in prison. Under the state law, he would have to serve 75% of that time before he is eligible for parole. He won't be out until his 70s, at least.
Though justice was served, this brutal crime had more than one victim.
This story was tragic for, so many reasons.
3 children don't have a mother, really don't have a father.
They have to know and live with for the rest of their lives that their own father killed their mother.
Those closest to Tiara are doing all they can to give her children the life she wanted them to have.
Tiara's mom had to step up and take responsibility of raising her 3 kids, and she hasn't really had time to grieve because she has had to put, a brave face on for these kids and get them through this.
Martel's still involved in their life. He's taken them places, games, and so that's a testament to him.
But no amount of love can fill the void Tiara's untimely death left in the hearts of her fiancé and her children.
That's going to leave scars for a long time, if not forever.
It's just something that shouldn't have happened.
The ultimate tragedy is that a woman who was a terrific mother and, by all accounts, a very nice, wonderful person was killed and certainly didn't deserve anything like this.
There was nothing that could stop them from achieving their dreams.
They were ambitious, and they both wanted more.
They played well off of each other.
Until a seemingly random crime tears their world apart.
He smashes out the window, reaches in to grab the purse.
He shot her 4 times.
Detectives will do whatever they can to catch the killer.
It was so brazen. It was the day after Christmas.
No stone is going to be unturned.
But nothing can prepare them for the shocking truth.
Ruthless and heartless.
It was horrible.
I was in total disbelief.
Is there a serial killer on the loose?
Tia.
Or is this the ultimate act of betrayal?
You felt so bad for this person, and now it turns out that person's guilty.
You're capable of a lot if you would do this.
David Brankel. Brankel stood in the well of the court, his hands cuffed,
his gaze fixed on a small crack in the mahogany paneling. He looked smaller than he had in the surveillance videos. The boonie hat was gone, replaced by a thinning crown of gray hair. $175,000, the judge read. Brankel felt a cold, hollow laugh in his chest. $175,000. He had spent that much on BMW repairs and designer suits in a single year. The money was gone vaporized into the interstates and the motel rooms of the Midwest. He looked back at the gallery. The Sperrys weren't there. The Logans weren't there. To them, David Brankel wasn't a criminal to be confronted. He was a natural disaster that had passed through their lives. They were busy rebuilding, too tired to watch him receive a sentence for crimes that didn't even include their losses. I didn't rip them off, Brankel muttered to his lawyer. I did legitimate work for them. He truly believed it. In the distorted theater of his mind, the consulting he did for the Logans was worth every penny of the $5,500 he'd scammed. The fact that the Great Escape was a pile of useless blueprints didn't matter. He had given them the feeling of success, and to Brankel, that was the most valuable commodity in the world. As he was let out of the courtroom to begin his 21-year stretch, he passed a window. He could see the I-64 stretching out toward the horizon. I was good, he whispered to the glass. I was the best there ever was. But as the heavy steel doors of the transport van slammed shut, the only thing left of the IBM Bandit was a dropped wallet and a long, empty road. End of part 1. Shadows of the Self. The Chronicles of American Deception. Prologue. The Fragility of a Name. Identity is a ghost. We spend our lives building it brick by brick, document by document, convinced that the plastic cards in our wallets and the digital footprints we leave behind are solid ground. We believe our names belong to us. We are wrong. In the early 2000s, across the rugged landscapes of Colorado and the quiet, manicured lawns of suburban Illinois, two different kinds of predators were proving just how easily that ghost could be kidnapped. One was a frantic, neon-lit underworld of addiction and forgery. The other was a cold, calculated phantom with striking blue eyes. This is the story of the lives they shattered and the hunters who refused to stop. Chapter 1, The Saturday Shock. The Colorado sun was a deceptive thing. It shone brightly over the asphalt of the Denver suburbs, promising a peaceful Saturday afternoon. Virginia Dissette gripped the steering wheel of her car, her mind drifting to her upcoming chiropractic appointment. It was a mundane chore, the kind of weekend errand that defined a stable, suburban life. The blue lights in her rearview mirror were a sudden, jarring intrusion. Virginia sighed, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. She looked at her speedometer. Speeding. Fine. Just a ticket, she thought. She pulled over to the shoulder, the gravel crunching beneath her tires. She reached for her registration, preparing her polite citizen's smile for the officer. But when the officer approached, His hand didn't rest loosely on his belt. His face was a mask of professional grimness. Virginia Dissett, he asked, his voice flat. Yes, officer. I'm sorry. I was just headed to. Ma'am, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Keep your hands where I can see them. The smile died on her lips. A cold needle of dread pricked at the base of her spine. Is there a problem? There is a warrant out for your arrest. Virginia. Felony forgery. Virginia let out a short, hysterical laugh. No, you're joking. You have the wrong person. I don't think so. Ma'am, turn around and put your hands behind your back. The metallic click of the handcuffs was the loudest sound she had ever heard. It was the sound of her world snapping shut. As she was led to the back of the cruiser, the neighbors watched, their eyes filled with the silent, judgmental curiosity that turns a victim into a criminal in the court of public opinion. At the county jail, the reality set in with the smell of floor wax and stale sweat. They stripped her of her dignity along with her personal belongings. The orange jumpsuit felt like a shroud. I haven't done anything, she whispered to the concrete walls of her cell. 2 months prior, a thief had broken into her car and snatched her wallet. To Virginia, it had been a nightmare of canceled credit cards and a lost driver's license. To the thieves, it had been a master key. They hadn't just stolen her money, they had stolen her face. As she watched other women, some shaking from withdrawal, others hardened by years of the system being hauled off in shackles, Virginia realized the system didn't care about the truth. It cared about the paperwork. And the paperwork said Virginia Dissett was a felon. Chapter 2. The Architect and the Addict. While Virginia sat in a cell, the man responsible for her misery was miles away, fueled by a chemical fire that never went out. Michael Schreckingist lived in a house that was less a home and more a fortress of paranoia. Cameras were hidden in the trees, mounted on the roof, and angled at the backyard. Inside, the air was thick with the acidic tang of methamphetamine and the ozone smell of high-end laser printers. Schreckingist was the top dog. In the hierarchy of the Denver underworld, he wasn't a common street thug. He was a technician, a logistics manager for a loose-knit army of 40 addicts. Beside him sat Tammy Carroll. In another life, Tammy might have been a graphic designer or a suburban mother. Now, her skin was pale, her eyes darting with the frantic energy of a 3-day binge. "Look at this one," Tammy muttered, holding up a check. It looked perfect. The watermark, the routing numbers, the weight of the paper, it was a masterpiece of deception. "Whose name?" Schreckingist asked, not looking up from his computer screen. "Dissett. Virginia Dissett. We got the ID, the social, the banking statement. It's a gold mine." Schreckingist nodded. "Print 5. Make sure the tellers won't blink. And tell Roberta to put on the wig. We need her to look exactly like the photo." This was the meth identity theft nexus. It was a symbiotic relationship. The drug provided the hyperfocus and the stamina to spend 20 hours a day digging through trash bins, intercepting mail, and manipulating software to create counterfeit documents. The identity theft provided the cash thousands of dollars a week to buy more meth. Tammy remembered her first time. The rush of walking into a bank with a dead woman's name and walking out with $1,000 in crisp bills. It was a high better than the needle. I had gotten addicted to the game, she would later tell herself, using somebody else's name, being somebody else for 10 minutes. It made me feel powerful, but the power was an illusion. Underneath the counterfeit checks and the wigs was a rotting core. Tammy's children were in foster care. Her house was a wreck. Her soul was being traded, one forged signature at a time. Chapter 3, The Red Flag. The operation was simple, yet devastatingly effective. They called it the mail run. At 3 in the morning, while the rest of Denver slept, Schreckingist's foot soldiers drifted through the residential neighborhoods like ghosts. They looked for the red flags, the tiny metal levers on mailboxes that signaled a bill was ready to be picked up. To a normal person, a bill was a nuisance. To Tammy, it was a blueprint. Inside those envelopes were account numbers, signatures, and credit limits. One morning, they hit the jackpot. A convenience check from a credit card company sent to a woman with a $25,000 limit. Schreckingist's eyes gleamed when he saw it. "We're going big," he said. "I want that Harley Davidson." Using a stolen identity, he walked into a dealership. He was commanding. He was charming. He wore a suit that masked the sores on his arms. He presented the counterfeit check for $17,000. The salesman, blinded by the commission, barely glanced at the ID. Schreckingist rode out of the lot on a brand new motorcycle, the wind in his face, feeling invincible. He was a man with 40 names and no soul. Chapter 4, The Hunter. Detective Jim Rock didn't like ghosts. He liked facts. He liked paper trails. And he liked seeing the look on a criminal's face when the trail ended at their front door. Rock had been tracking the cassette checks for months. He had seen the surveillance footage, women in wigs, oversized sunglasses, acting the part of the suburban housewife. He knew it was a ring. He knew it was meth. "They're getting sloppy," Jim, his partner, said, tossing a folder onto his desk. A teller in Denver caught one. A guy named Michael Schreckingist tried to use an ID for a Benjamin Bryce Taiwan Kim. The ID was so bad it looked like it was printed on a cereal box. Rock leaned back in his chair. "Schreckingist, he's the one with the cameras in the trees, right?" "That's him." Rock decided to play a different game. He didn't just want an arrest. He wanted to break them. He began driving by Schreckingist's house every day. He would stop, get out of his car, and stare directly into the hidden cameras. He would bang on the door, knowing they were inside, watching him on the monitors, their hearts racing with chemical-induced paranoia. "I'm here, Michael," Rock Silence screamed, "and I'm not going away." The pressure began to crack the ring. Tammy Carroll was the first to fall. She was caught purchasing stolen IDs from a police informant. When Rock sat across from her in the interrogation room, he didn't see a criminal mastermind. He saw a broken woman. "Where are your kids?" "Tammy," Rock asked softly. That was the breaking point. The tears came, hot and fast, washing away the mask of the forger. She told him everything. She told him about the mail, the printers, the Harley, and the man who thought he could outrun the law on a stolen bike. Chapter 5. The Phantom of Wheaton. While the Denver ring was loud, messy, and fueled by drugs, a different kind of terror was gripping the suburbs of Chicago. Wheaton, Illinois, was a place of safety. It was the kind of town where people left their back doors unlocked. But since 2002, a shadow had been moving through the morning mist. They called him the Wheaton Bandit. He was a ghost with striking blue eyes. He didn't need meth. He didn't need an army. He needed a tactical hood, a police scanner, and a handgun. August 28, 2003, 6:30 a.m. Jennifer, a teller supervisor, arrived at the Wheaton Bank. The air was crisp. She heard a sound the snap of a twig in the bushes near the drive-up ATM. Her instincts, honed by years of suburban caution, flared. "Hurry!" she hissed to the teller behind her. They scrambled inside. Jennifer slammed the heavy glass door and turned the lock just as a figure emerged from the bushes. He was tall, dressed in dark tactical gear, a balaclava obscuring his face. Only his eyes were visible, cold, piercing blue. He grabbed the door handle and yanked. It held. He stared through the glass at Jennifer. He didn't scream. He didn't panic. He simply let go of the handle, turned, and vanished into the woods. He was a professional. He knew when a hit was burned. FBI agents Tina Forkas and Eric Cayley stood in the spot where the bandit had waited. "He hides here," Cayley noted, pointing to the line of sight toward the bank entrance. "He watches them. He knows their patterns. He parks in the cul-de-sac behind the trees. Quick entry, quick exit. And look at this," Forka said, looking at the surveillance stills from a previous hit. "Look at his hand. He's indexing the weapon." The bandit held his pistol with his trigger finger straight along the slide, not on the trigger. It was a sign of elite training. Military, SWAT, law enforcement. "He's one of us," Cayley whispered. "Or he used to be." The realization sent a chill through the task force. They weren't just hunting a robber. They were hunting someone who knew their tactics, who knew their scanners, and who might be wearing body armor under his coat. The Wheaton Bandit had hit 16 times. He had taken over $150,000. He was a man who didn't steal for a fix. He stole for the rush, for the power of standing in a room and commanding every soul within it to drop to the floor. Chapter 6. The Cost of Innocence. Back in Colorado, the charges against Virginia Dissette were finally dropped. Detective Rock had proven she was a victim, not a forger. But the victory felt hollow. "It's not over," Virginia told her husband. "My arrest record is still there. My credit is ruined. When I apply for a job, they don't see innocent victim. They see lack of evidence. She had spent hundreds of hours on the phone with banks, title companies, and credit bureaus. Her life had become a second job, the job of proving she existed. Meanwhile, Tammy Carroll stood before a judge. "You are a drug addict," the judge said, his voice echoing in the courtroom. "And I don't ever want to see your kids in your care again." It was a sentence worse than death. Tammy looked at her hands. They were clean of ink for the first time in years. The fog of the meth was lifting, leaving behind a cold, desolate landscape of her own making. "I have to change," she whispered. Across the country, the Wheaton Bandit was preparing for his next hit. He was checking his scanner. He was polishing his blue eyes in the mirror. He was the shadow that wouldn't go away. The war on identity theft and the hunt for the bandit were two sides of the same coin, the struggle to protect what is ours in a world where everything can be stolen. Chapter 7, The Fall of the Architect. July 31st, 2002. The chemical confidence that had sustained Michael Schreckingist for a year finally betrayed him. Meth makes you feel like a god, but it leaves the brain like a frayed wire. Schreckingist walked into a bank, his jaw tight from clenching, his eyes bloodshot. He handed over an ID. The name on the card was Benjamin Bryce Taiwan Kim. It was a name he had used before, a fatal error in the world of forgery. The teller didn't smile. She didn't blink. She simply walked to the back, her steps measured. Schreckingist stood at the counter, the silence of the bank beginning to roar in his ears. He looked at the door. He didn't run. The drug told him he was smarter than them. The drug told him he could talk his way out of anything. When the police arrived, they didn't find a mastermind. They found a man whose life was a collection of stolen fragments. Schreckingist was sentenced to 10 years under the organized crime statute. The cameras in his trees continued to record, but now they only captured the empty wind and the occasional stray dog. For Tammy Carroll, the end of the ring was the beginning of a long, agonizing walk back to humanity. She didn't go to prison. She went to a drug treatment center. She traded the high of the $1,000 forgery for the low of a minimum wage job. "I make in a month what I used to make in a day," she told her sobriety group years later. "But I can look my children in the eye now. I'm not a ghost anymore." Chapter 8, The Digital Predator. As the meth-fueled forgers of Denver were being led away in chains, a new breed of predator was emerging from the shadows of the internet. They didn't need to dig through trash or wait by mailboxes. They only needed a file-sharing program called LimeWire. Kirsten Gregg and Danya Davis, agents for the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, were tracking a different kind of trail. "Her name is Kimberly Merritt," Greg said, pinning a photo to the board. "She's an identity thief. She's also a meth addict. Between October and March, she scammed nearly $140,000. How?" Davis asked. "LimeWire people leave their computers unsecured, sharing music or movies. Merritt searches for files containing keywords like banking, Social Security, or tax return. She downloads their lives while they're watching a movie in the other room. Merritt was a nomad. She lived in a cramped RV parked in the desolate plains 25 miles outside of Denver. When the agents arrived at the RV, the smell of poverty and chemical rot was overwhelming. Inside, Kim Merritt sat surrounded by mountains of credit documents, loan applications, bank statements, and Social Security numbers scrawled on napkins. "We need to speak to you," Kim, Davis said, her eyes landing on a crack pipe resting on a table next to a pile of stolen identities. "I'm not doing anything wrong," Merritt whispered, her voice a raspy edge. Davis picked up a baggie of suspected methamphetamine. "Classic case. You're sitting here looking at your documents, finding your exit, with your addiction right next to you." Merritt didn't fight. She didn't have the energy. "It's the drugs," she sobbed as the handcuffs tightened. "The drugs make me do it. I just want the next high." For the victims of Kim Merritt, the nightmare was only beginning. One of those victims was Anita Jans. Chapter 9, The $1 Million Shadow. Anita Jans was a woman who believed in the system. She paid her bills on time, maintained a high credit score, and lived within her means. In September 2005, she was on the phone with a mortgage broker, looking for a better rate on her home. "I see you have more than one mortgage," the broker said casually. Anita froze. "No, I don't think so." "Well, it says here you have nearly $1 million in properties under your name." The world tilted. Anita felt a cold wave of nausea. Someone had taken her name, her credit, and her history, and built a $1 million empire of debt. The average victim spends 600 hours cleaning up the mess. Anita spent 8 months in a state of constant panic, calling mortgage companies that didn't believe her and title companies that viewed her as a fraud artist. "You feel responsible for things you never did," Anita said, her voice trembling. "They don't want your car. They don't want your jewelry. They want you." It took a professional company, ID Watchdog, to finally start clearing the wreckage. Identity had become a commodity so valuable that companies were now being hired to protect it and even to steal it back. Chapter 10, The White Hat Thief. Jim Stickley was a man who stole for a living. But he wasn't a criminal. He was the owner of Trace Security, a company hired by banks and corporations to find the holes in their armor. If we get caught, it's a surprise to us at this point, Stickley told a group of wide-eyed bank executives. His favorite tactic was the fire inspector ruse. He would put on a generic shirt, pin on a fake badge, and carry an empty black bag. He would walk into a bank with a smile and a confident stride. "Fire inspection," he would say to the greeter. "I need to walk the facility." 9 times out of 10, they gave him the keys to the kingdom. He would walk straight into the data center, grab the backup tapes, containing every customer's social security number and account details, and walk out the front door. I'm not silver-tongued, Stickley said. I'm just a nice, average guy, and that's all it takes. He was the white hat, the man showing the world that the ghost of identity was only as safe as the person holding the key. And in many cases, the person holding the key was more than happy to hand it over to a stranger with a smile. Chapter 11, The Blue Eyes in the Mist. While Colorado wrestled with its addicts and digital thieves, the Wheaton Bandit was still playing his deadly game of cat and mouse in Illinois. December 2006. The bandit had hit 3 banks in 8 days. He was taunting them. It's a swan song. Some in the task force whispered, he's going for a grand finale. No, Agent Eric Cayley disagreed. He's addicted. Not to meth, but to the rush. He's looking at us right now. He's listening to our scanners. He knows every move we make. The bandit's signature was becoming clearer. He wore body armor. He used a tactical hood. He indexed his weapon. He was prepared for a war. He's waiting for the shootout, Detective Steve Hamill said, looking at the shoe prints in the snow. He parks his car on a one-way street, always alone. He doesn't trust anyone else with his secrets. An eyewitness finally came forward. He had seen a man near a bank, thought it was his brother, and approached him. When the man turned, the witness saw a face that didn't belong to a sibling. A face that looked startled, then vanished. Based on that witness, a sketch was released. The blue eyes were there. The jawline was there. The day the sketch hit the newspapers, the robbery stopped. The Wheaton Bandit disappeared into the suburban mist, leaving behind 16 victims, over $150,000 in stolen cash, and a legacy of fear. The investigation entered its 5th year. The reward grew to $50,000. He's done his part of the job very well, Cayley said, looking at the empty chair in the task force room. Now we have to do ours. The war on deception was a war without an end. For every Schreckingus that fell, a Kim Merritt rose. For every bank that tightened its security, a Wheaton Bandit found a new bush to hide in. Identity was a ghost, and the world was full of hunters. Chapter 12, The Psychology of the Gun. Jonna England had been a bank teller for 17 years. She had seen thousands of faces, processed millions of dollars, and weathered the slow evolution of suburban banking. But nothing had prepared her for the morning of the third hit. I looked towards the door, Jonna recalled, her voice still trembling years later. And there was a man standing there with a gun pointing at me. She couldn't look up. The cold weight of the weapon's presence seemed to press down on her shoulders. She stared at the bandit's shoes, at the way he stood perfectly balanced, perfectly in control. I know you have more money, the bandit said. His voice was calm, devoid of the frantic edge of a drug addict. This was a man doing a job. I have no more money, Jonna whispered, showing her empty hands. Then the bandit spotted the die pack. It was a tiny device designed to explode and stain the cash, making it useless. His demeanor shifted. The calm professional vanished, replaced by a flash of predatory anger. "What do you think I am? Stupid," he hissed. "I used to work in a bank. I know what that is." That single sentence "I used to work in a bank" sent a ripple through the FBI task force. Was he an ex-employee? Or was he just playing a role to intimidate the tellers? Every word he spoke was analyzed, every movement dissected. Detective Steve Hamill retraced the bandit's footsteps through the snow outside the bank. He ran across this grassy area, Hamill noted, walking the line. He turned left, halfway down the block. Footprints lead to the driver's side of where a car was parked. One set of prints. He works alone. No getaway driver. No witnesses in the car. Just him and the silence of the suburb. The FBI classified him as a professional bank robber. He didn't hit for a fix. He hit for the adrenaline. He was indexing his weapon like a soldier. He was wearing soft body armor like a cop. He was a man prepared to kill because he was terrified of being ordinary. Chapter 13, The Iron Breath of Justice. As the Wheaton Bandit faded into a 5-year silence, the battle in Colorado took a more organized turn. The Colorado Bankers Association, tired of losing $150 million a year to fraud, decided to fund their own army. They created the CFI Criminal Fraud Investigators. Kirsten Gregg and Danya Davis were the face of this new front. Their mission was to hunt the Kims and Michaels of the world before they could ruin another life. "We suspect Kimberly Merritt hasn't stopped," Davis said, checking her sidearm as they prepared to return to the RV in the plains. "She's out on bond, but the meth doesn't care about legal documents. It only cares about the next baggie. They've found her exactly where they expected, surrounded by the same digital debris, the same stolen Social Security numbers, and the same crack pipe. It's the drugs." Merritt cried again as she was led to the police cruiser. "They make me do it." But the agents had heard it all before. Behind the drugs made me do it excuse was a trail of women like Anita Jans, whose lives had been put on hold for years. Meanwhile, Tammy Carroll was proving that the ghost could be reclaimed. She had stayed clean. She had survived the drug treatment center. She had worked minimum wage jobs until she could prove to the court that she was no longer the woman who forged Virginia Dissette's name. That Friday night group I do now. It's called The Road to Sobriety. Tammy told a room full of addicts. I use my past to help others instead of it just being wasted time. 3 years after the judge told her she'd never see her children again, the impossible happened. The 3 oldest children were returned to her. "I make in a month what I used to make in a day," she said, hugging her kids. "But I feel so much better about myself. No drug, no check, no fraud can make me feel like I do today." Chapter 14, The Greeters and the Ghosts. The banking industry was changing. The old ways of wait and see were being replaced by the no hats, no hoods, no sunglasses program. It's about eye contact, one bank manager explained. A robber wants to be invisible. If a greeter makes eye contact, if they say welcome and look you in the face, the robber feels exposed. They feel seen. But the question remained, why not armed guards? Statistically, Agent Cayley noted, if you put an armed guard at the door, the chances of a shootout skyrocket. We don't want a war in the lobby. We want deterrence. The Wheaton Bandit had eluded all the cameras, all the greeters, and all the task forces. He had hit 16 times and failed only once. He was the ultimate shadow in the safe apple pie suburbs of Chicago. As the reward reached $50,000, the FBI processed tip number 101, then 102. They investigated a suspect who turned out to be in prison during the robberies. They investigated another whose physical description didn't match. He's done his part very well, the agents admitted, but he only has to make one mistake. We just have to be there when he does. Chapter 15, The Unseen Scars. For Virginia Dissett, the world had been put back together, but the seams were jagged. Even after the charges were dismissed, the ghost of the forgery lived on in the cold, unfeeling memory of the state's databases. When charges are dropped, Virginia, it often says lack of evidence, her lawyer told her, his voice weary. It doesn't say this woman is a saint. It just says we couldn't prove you did it. To a hiring manager, that's a red flag that never stops waving. She sat in her kitchen, the afternoon light casting long, tired shadows across the floor. Her identity had been returned to her, but it was tattered. Her credit score, once a source of quiet pride, was a wreckage of late fees and fraudulent loans. I have to fight for my innocence every single day, she told her husband. I'm out of jail, but I'm still serving a sentence for a crime I didn't commit. The battle wasn't just against the thieves anymore. It was against the bureaucracy. It was a war of letter writing, of long waits on hold, and of explaining her trauma over and over again to strangers who saw her as a series of digits on a screen. Chapter 16, The Digital Web. In the high-tech offices of the CBI, Agent Kirsten Gregg stared at a computer monitor. The name Kimberly Merritt was at the center of a spider web of IP addresses and file-sharing logs. It's not just LimeWire anymore, Greg muttered. She's learned to crawl into the unsecured cracks of local networks. She memorizes social security numbers like most people memorize song lyrics. Kim Merritt was a master of the long con identity theft. She didn't just drain a bank account. She opened new lines of credit, bought vehicles, and obtained cell phones, all under the names of women who had no idea they were being cannibalized from the inside out. The meth gives her the focus, Davis added, leaning against the doorframe. She stays up for 72 hours straight, scrolling through tax returns she's poached from some poor soul's hard drive. To her, these people aren't human. They're just data points that can be converted into the next hit of glass. When they finally moved in on Merritt for the final time, the RV felt like a tomb. The air was stale with the smell of scorched plastic and chemical despair. "You don't understand," Merritt sobbed, her hands shaking as she reached for her Sam's Club card, one of the few things she claimed was actually hers. "It's like a hunger. If I don't have the drugs, the documents start screaming at me. If I have the drugs, I can make the documents dance." Merritt was a casualty of the digital age hunter who had become a slave to her own prey. Chapter 17, The Chicago Scheme. While the identity thieves of the West were driven by the frantic hunger of addiction, a new predator was emerging in the heart of Chicago. This one didn't live in an RV. He lived in a mansion. He didn't dig through trash. He wore a white coat and held a scalpel. His name was Dr. Martinez. In the gleaming halls of his private practice, the air didn't smell like meth. It smelled like expensive cologne and sterilized ambition. To the world, Dr. Martinez was a pillar of the community, a man dedicated to the healing arts. To the FBI, he was starting to look like a multi-million-dollar ghost. "He's billing for surgeries that never happened," Agent Miller reported, looking at a stack of insurance claims. "He's using the names of real patients, using their medical IDs, but the procedures, pure fiction." It was identity theft on a grand, institutional scale. While a meth addict might steal $1,000 to survive the night, Dr. Martinez was stealing millions to fund a lifestyle of luxury. But as the feds began to close in, the doctor's panic began to ferment into something far more dangerous than simple greed. He kept on billing for surgeries when they weren't rendered. A whistleblower whispered into a recorded line. And when Joyce Brandon found out, when she threatened to talk, the war on deception was moving from the streets to the operating rooms. And in this new chapter, the price of identity wouldn't just be measured in dollars or credit points. It would be measured in blood. Chapter 18, The Prayer of the Teller. Jana England still saw the Wheaton bandits' eyes in her dreams. They weren't angry eyes. They were calculated, cold, professional. "I just prayed that he wouldn't get so nervous that he would shoot us," she told the task force. The investigation was